What if Issei teleported in Kuroinu Kedakaki Sekjio to save all girls and marry them all? The basement of the old school building was definitely not where Issei Hayadu expected to spend his Tuesday afternoon. But when Asia mentioned she'd found some weird magical book in the Occult Research Club's storage room, his curiosity got the better of him. Are you sure about this, Issei? Asia asked nervously, holding the dusty leather-bound tome with both hands. The cover had strange symbols that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Come on, it's probably nothing, Issei replied, though he kept his sacred gear ready just in case. After everything he'd been through as a devil, a mysterious book was pretty low on his list of concerns. Rias and the others are at that meeting with Sona, so we've got time to check it out. Asia carefully opened the book. The pages were filled with text in a language neither of them recognized, but certain diagrams caught Issei's attention. They looked like summoning circles, but different from any devil magic he'd seen before. Maybe we should wait for President Rias, Asia suggested, but as she spoke, one of the diagrams began to glow with bright golden light. Whoa, hold on. Issei stepped back, but the light expanded rapidly, engulfing them both. He felt a pulling sensation, like being yanked by an invisible rope. His sacred gear activated automatically, the green gauntlet materializing on his left arm. Boost! The familiar voice of Drake echoed, but it sounded strained, struggling against whatever force was taking them. Partner, I can't stop this. It's ancient magic, something I haven't felt in thousands of years. The light became blinding. Issei tried to grab Asia's hand, but the force pulled them in different directions. He shouted her name, but his voice was drowned out by a sound like rushing wind and crackling energy. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. Issei hit the ground hard, rolling several times before coming to a stop. He groaned and slowly got to his feet, looking around in confusion. He definitely wasn't in the school basement anymore. He stood in what looked like a medieval town square, but chaos surrounded him. Buildings were on fire, people were screaming and running in all directions, and the sound of combat echoed from nearby streets. Armored soldiers that looked nothing like humans were chasing civilians, their cruel laughter mixing with cries of terror. What the hell is going on? Issei muttered, his mind racing. This wasn't anywhere in Kuo. The architecture was all wrong, the people dressed in medieval clothing, and the sky above had an odd purple tint he'd never seen before. Partner, we're not in your world anymore, Drake confirmed, his voice serious in Issei's mind. I can sense it. The laws of reality here are different. This is another dimension entirely. Before Issei could process that information, a woman's scream pierced through the chaos. His head snapped toward the sound, and he saw a group of monstrous soldiers surrounding a blonde woman in elegant white and gold robes. She wielded a staff and was trying to cast some kind of spell, but there were too many enemies. Issei didn't hesitate. Whatever world this was, whoever these people were, he couldn't just stand by and watch someone get hurt. That wasn't who he was. Drake, let's go! Boost! 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 Power surged through Issei's body as he charged forward. The distance between him and the attackers closed in seconds. The monsters didn't even see him coming. His right fist, covered in draconic energy, slammed into the first soldier with enough force to send him flying into a building wall. The others turned toward him, surprised, but Issei was already moving. He'd been training with Rias and the others for months now, and these guys, while intimidating looking, moved like regular soldiers. They had nothing on Riser's peerage or the fights he'd been through. Dragon shot. A blast of power erupted from his gauntlet, scattering the enemies. The ones who didn't get blown away retreated quickly, apparently deciding this fight wasn't worth it. Issei turned to check on the woman he'd saved. Up close, she was stunning, with long blonde hair that almost seemed to glow, deep blue eyes, and features that radiated nobility and kindness. She looked at him with a mixture of shock and relief. Are you okay? Issei asked, extending his hand to help her up. Yes, thank you, she said softly, taking his hand. Her voice was gentle but carried authority. You appeared out of nowhere. Are you a summoned hero? Did the ritual work after all? Ritual? I don't know about any ritual. I just kinda got pulled here by accident, Issei admitted, scratching his head. I'm Issei Hayadu. What's going on here? Who are those guys? The woman's expression turned grave. I am Celestine Lucross, High Elf and leader of the Seven Shield Alliance. And those soldiers, they serve Volt, the Black Dog mercenary commander who has betrayed us all. His forces have launched a coordinated attack on all 7 of our fortresses simultaneously. As if to emphasize her words, another explosion rocked the area. Issei could see more of those monster soldiers pouring into the streets, and the sounds of battle were getting closer. We need to get to safety, Celestine continued, urgency in her voice. The capital's defenses are falling. If we don't regroup with my allies, all will be lost. The women of this land will face a fate worse than death. Something in her tone, the genuine fear mixed with determination, reminded Issei of Rias and Asia. These were people who needed help, and from what he could see, they were losing badly. Then let's not let that happen, Issei said firmly. I don't fully understand what's going on, but I can't just leave people to suffer. Where do we need to go? Celestine looked at him with surprise and hope. The palace. If we can reach it, we can activate the barrier defenses. But the path is filled with Volt's forces. Leave that to me, Issei grinned, the familiar excitement of a fight building in his chest. I'm pretty good at getting through tough situations. Drake, you ready? Always, partner. Let's show this world what the Red Dragon Emperor can do. Celestine's eyes widened at those words. Red Dragon Emperor? You bear the power of a heavenly dragon? Long story. I'll explain while we move. Which way to the palace? She pointed toward a large structure in the distance, a magnificent building with tall spires that rose above the other buildings. Even from here, Issei could see it was under heavy attack, with smoke rising from several points. Then let's go. Issei scooped Celestine up in a princess carry before she could protest. Hold on tight. Boost! 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 Power multiplied in his body, and Issei launched into the air. Celestine gasped as they shot upward, then forward, soaring over the burning city. The wind whipped past them as Issei used his demonic energy to fly, something that seemed to work even in this strange world. From above, he could see the full scope of the attack. The entire city was under siege, with monster soldiers everywhere. But he also noticed something else, groups of women in armor fighting desperately to defend key positions. They fought with skill and courage, but they were clearly outnumbered and exhausted. Those are the warriors of the Alliance, Celestine explained, pointing to various groups. The Dark Elf forces under Princess Olga, the Knights of the Fortress Cities, the Mage Corps. Everyone is giving their all, but Volt's betrayal caught us unprepared. He knew all our defenses, all our strategies. Issei gritted his teeth. A betrayal from within, that was the worst kind. It reminded him of some of the things he'd heard about the war between devils, angels, and fallen angels. As they approached the palace, a massive winged creature rose up to intercept them. It looked like some kind of demon, with bat-like wings, horns, and crimson skin. The thing roared and belched fire directly at them. Hold on! Issei twisted in midair, dodging the flames. He couldn't block them directly with Celestine in his arms. But as the creature prepared another attack, Issei acted. Drake, I need the gauntlet on my leg for a second. The sacred gear responded, and red draconic armor appeared on his right leg. Issei spun in the air and delivered a devastating kick to the creature's head. The impact was tremendous, and the demon went spiraling down, crashing into an abandoned building. Impressive, Celestine breathed, looking at Issei with new appreciation. Your power is extraordinary. Perhaps there is hope after all. They landed in the palace courtyard, where a desperate battle was taking place. Female knights in various armors were making a last stand against a wave of enemies. Issei set Celestine down carefully, and immediately jumped into the fight. These knights were skilled, he could see that right away. But they were exhausted, injured, and on the verge of being overwhelmed. Time to even the odds. Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Issei unleashed a barrage of attacks, clearing out entire groups of enemy soldiers. The knights stared at him in shock, but quickly rallied, pushing back against their attackers with renewed vigor. A tall woman with dark hair and red eyes, wearing impressive black and silver armor, fought her way to Issei's position. Despite her elegant appearance, she fought with brutal efficiency, her sword cutting down enemies with precise strikes. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice carrying authority and suspicion. "Your power is not of this world. I'm Issei Hayadu, and I'm here to help," he replied, blocking an attack meant for her with his gauntlet. "Friend of Celestine." The woman's expression shifted slightly. "If Celestine trusts you, then I shall reserve judgment. I am Olga Discordia, Dark Elf Princess, and leader of my people's forces. We are holding this position until we can evacuate the civilians, but our time is running out." "Then we make more time," Issei said confidently. He turned to the gathered knights and raised his voice. "Everyone, fall back to the palace entrance. I'll hold them off." "Are you insane?" Olga protested. "There are hundreds of them," Issei just grinned. "Then it's a good thing I've fought worse odds before. Trust me on this." He stepped forward, placing himself between the retreating knights and the approaching army. The enemy soldiers, seeing one person standing alone, laughed and charged forward in a massive wave. Boost! 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 Issei's body glowed with red and green energy as Drake's power multiplied again and again. The ground beneath his feet cracked from the pressure of his aura. When the first line of enemies reached him, he unleashed everything. Dragon Shot! The blast of draconic energy was massive, far larger than anything he'd used before. It tore through the enemy ranks like a tsunami, sending bodies flying in all directions. The shockwave shattered windows in nearby buildings and left a smoking crater where dozens of soldiers had been standing. The enemy army actually stopped, staring at the destruction in shock and fear. Even Volt's monsters understood what they were facing now, something far beyond a normal fighter. Issei stood in the center of the destruction, his sacred gear glowing brightly, breathing heavily but grinning. "Who's next?" The enemies began to retreat, their morale broken by the display of overwhelming power. Behind him, Issei could hear the knights and Celestine cheering. He'd bought them time, and more importantly, he'd given them hope. As the immediate danger passed, Celestine approached him, her expression mixing awe and curiosity. "Issei Hayadu, Red Dragon Emperor, I believe fate has brought you to us in our darkest hour. Will you help us? Will you stand with the Seven Shield Alliance against the darkness that threatens to consume us all?" Issei looked at her, then at Olga, then at all the other women who were watching him with hope in their eyes. He thought about his own world, about Rias and his friends. He needed to find a way back, but he couldn't abandon these people. That wasn't who he was. Drake had said the laws of reality here were different. Maybe that meant he could make a real difference. "Yeah," he said firmly, meeting Celestine's gaze. "I'll help. I don't know how I got here or how to get back yet, but I'm not going to let innocent people suffer when I can do something about it. That's a promise." Celestine smiled, genuine warmth in her expression, and for a moment, Issei saw something else in her eyes: admiration, gratitude, and perhaps the first stirrings of something deeper. "Then let us begin," she said. "We have much to discuss, and many more who need saving. This is only the first battle of many to come." As they walked into the palace, Issei couldn't help but think that he just stumbled into something much bigger than he'd expected. But looking at the determined faces around him, at these strong women who refused to give up despite impossible odds, he felt his resolve strengthen. He was the Red Dragon Emperor. He'd face gods, devils, and fallen angels. Whatever this world threw at him, he'd face it head-on. And if saving everyone meant he had to fight an entire army by himself, then so be it. That's just the kind of guy Issei Hayada was. The palace war room was packed with people, most of them women in various types of armor and noble dress. Issei stood near Celestine as she addressed the gathered leaders of the Seven Shield Alliance. The atmosphere was tense, everyone looked exhausted and worried. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," said a woman with long pink hair and impressive armor. She had a commanding presence, and carried herself like a seasoned warrior. "3 of our 7 fortresses have fallen completely. Volt's forces control them now, and they're using them as bases to launch more attacks." Celestine nodded grimly. "Thank you for the report, Claudia. What about our forces? Can we mount a counterattack?" Claudia shook her head. "Our armies are scattered and demoralized. We've lost too many in the initial assaults. Without reinforcements, We can barely hold our current positions, let alone retake lost ground. This is unacceptable. Another woman slammed her fist on the table. She was younger, with bright orange hair tied in a ponytail and fierce determination in her eyes. We can't just sit here and wait for them to pick us off one by one. We need to fight back. Patience, Alicia, said an older woman with silver hair and a calm demeanor. Rushing in without a plan will only get more of our soldiers killed. We must be strategic. Issei watched the discussion going back and forth, trying to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. From what he'd gathered so far, this Volt guy had been a trusted mercenary commander who'd turned traitor. He'd coordinated a massive surprise attack across all 7 fortress cities at once, and now controlled most of the territory. "Excuse me," Issei spoke up, and everyone turned to look at him. He felt a bit awkward being the center of attention, but he had questions that needed answers. "I'm still new to this world, so forgive me if this is obvious, but what exactly does Volt want? Why betray you and launch this attack?" There was an uncomfortable silence. Several of the women exchanged glances, and Issei noticed some of them looking away, embarrassed or ashamed. Olga was the one who finally answered, her voice cold and bitter. "Volt doesn't want territory or gold. His goal is far more vile. He intends to capture all of us, the princesses, the knights, the noble ladies, and turn us into his personal slaves. His entire army is motivated by the promise of claiming women as spoils of war." Issei felt his blood run cold. "You're telling me this whole invasion is just so these guys can?" "Yes," Celestine confirmed quietly. "That is the fate that awaits us if we lose. It's why we cannot surrender, no matter how hopeless things seem. Death would be preferable." A dark rage began building in Issei's chest. He dealt with plenty of perverts in his life, including himself and his friends, but this was completely different. This wasn't harmless perverted thoughts. This was monsters planning to hurt innocent people. It reminded him of the worst devils and fallen angels he'd fought, the ones who saw humans as nothing but toys. "Drake," Issei thought to his partner. "Can you sense how strong these enemies are?" "I've been analyzing the energy signatures since we arrived, partner. The regular soldiers are no threat to you. Even their commanders would fall quickly to your current power. But I sense something else, darker presences in the background. Whoever is really behind this invasion has access to significant magical power." That matched what Issei suspected. An ordinary mercenary wouldn't be able to coordinate something this massive. "Alright, here's what I think," Issei said, drawing everyone's attention again. "Sitting here waiting isn't going to work. They have momentum and more resources right now. We need to hit them hard and fast. Take back one of the fortresses and use it to rally your scattered forces." "That's exactly what I've been saying," Alicia exclaimed, pointing at Issei. "Finally, someone with sense." "But it's too risky," the silver-haired woman protested. "We don't have the numbers for a direct assault." "That's where I come in," Issei grinned. "I know I just got here, but I'm pretty confident I can handle their forces. If you can put together a strike team to support me, I'll break through their defenses and clear a path. Once we take the fortress, the sight of one of their bases fallen should inspire your scattered troops to regroup." Claudia studied him carefully. "You're very confident. Celestine told us about your power, but can you really take on an entire fortress garrison by yourself? Want me to prove it?" Issei asked with a cocky smile that reminded him of the grins Rias would give before a raiding game. Before anyone could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the palace. A knight rushed into the room, panic on her face. "Princess Celestine! Enemy forces are attacking the eastern gate. They have siege weapons and war beasts. Our defenses won't hold for long." "How many?" Olga demanded. "At least 1,000 soldiers, plus several of those demon creatures like the one that attacked earlier." The room erupted in worried discussions. Celestine raised her hand for silence. "We need to evacuate the civilians in that district immediately. Claudia, Alicia, gather your knights and..." "I'll handle it," Issei interrupted, already heading for the door. "Wait, you can't go alone," Celestine called after him. "Watch me," Issei called back with a grin. "Consider this my job interview. I'll be back in a bit." He ran through the palace corridors, following the sounds of battle. Knights and guards pointed him toward the eastern section, their faces showing hope when they saw him running to help. Issei burst out onto the palace walls overlooking the eastern gate. Below, he could see the enemy army approaching. They had massive siege towers, battering rams, and those demon creatures Celestine had mentioned. The palace defenders were firing arrows and magic spells, but there were just too many enemies. Alright, Drake, let's see how my powers work in this world. I noticed during that first fight that the boosting feels different here. Indeed, partner. The laws of this reality are more accommodating to raw power. Your boosts are actually more effective here than back home. It seems this world has weaker restrictions on draconic energy. Issei grinned widely. So you're saying I can go even crazier than usual? Within reason. Don't blow yourself up. But yes, you should be able to achieve higher levels of power more quickly here. Perfect. Then let's give these guys a show they won't forget. Issei jumped up onto the wall's edge, standing in clear view of both armies. The defenders behind him gasped, and he heard several people shouting warnings. The enemy army below noticed him too, and some of them started laughing at the sight of one guy standing alone. Boost! 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 The sacred gear's power multiplied rapidly, faster than it normally did. Green and red energy swirled around Issei's body, forming a visible aura that made his clothes and hair whip in the wind. The laughter from below stopped as the enemies realized this wasn't normal. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Red armor erupted across Issei's body, the familiar sensation of his most powerful form taking hold. But something was different. The armor felt stronger, more responsive. The energy flowing through him was greater than he'd ever felt before. Explosion! Issei launched himself off the wall like a rocket, straight toward the center of the enemy formation. He hit the ground with tremendous force, creating a massive crater and sending enemies flying in all directions. Before they could recover, he started moving. His speed was incredible. He flashed through the enemy ranks, each punch and kick sending soldiers flying. The demon creatures tried to stop him, breathing fire and swinging massive claws, but Issei was too fast. He dodged their attacks and countered with devastating strikes of his own. Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Energy blasts erupted from his armor, destroying the siege weapons and scattering entire formations. The enemy tried to regroup, but Issei didn't give them a chance. He was everywhere at once, a red blur of destruction tearing through their army. One of the larger demon creatures, easily 3 stories tall, charged at him with a roar. Issei met it head-on, catching its claws with his armored hands. The two forces struggled, the demon's strength against Issei's draconic power. Boost! 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 With a shout, Issei lifted the massive creature off the ground and threw it backward into a group of enemy soldiers. It crashed down with tremendous force, creating another crater. The enemy army's morale shattered. Soldiers began retreating, running away from this unstoppable force that had appeared out of nowhere. Issei didn't chase them, he just stood there in the center of the destruction, his armor glowing brightly, making sure they understood what would happen if they came back. Behind him, on the palace walls, the defenders were silent with shock. Then someone started cheering, and soon everyone joined in. The sound of celebration echoed across the palace. Issei deactivated his balance breaker and flew back up to the wall. As soon as he landed, he was mobbed by excited knights and soldiers, all of them thanking him and praising his strength. That was amazing! One female knight exclaimed, her eyes shining with admiration. You destroyed an entire army by yourself. Another added, Are you really a dragon? You're so strong. Issei laughed awkwardly, not used to this level of attention from so many people at once. Back home, he was still kind of seen as the perverted guy, even if his friends respected his strength. But here, these women were looking at him like he was a genuine hero. Celestine appeared, having rushed to the eastern wall when she heard what was happening. She looked at the destruction below, then at Issei, and smiled warmly. I believe you've more than proven your capabilities, Issei Hayadu. When you return to the war room, I think you'll find less resistance to your plan. Sure enough, when they got back, the mood had completely changed. News of Issei's one-man defense had spread through the entire palace. The alliance leaders looked at him with new respect and hope. All right, Claudia said, her earlier skepticism gone. You've convinced me. What's your plan for retaking a fortress? Issei moved to the map spread across the table, studying it. Which fortress would be the best strategic target? One that, if we take it, would hurt their operations the most? Olga pointed to a fortress marked on the northern section of the map. The northern fortress, currently held by one of Volt's commanders, a demon named Qin. It's the smallest of the captured fortresses, but it controls the main supply route. If we retake it, we cut off supplies to their other positions and force them to respond. Plus, Alicia added excitedly, the garrison there is holding several of our captured soldiers and knights. If we can free them, we'll add to our fighting force. Perfect, Issei nodded. That's our target. How soon can you put together a strike team? I'll lead it personally, Claudia volunteered. Give me 2 hours to gather my best knights. I'm going too, Alicia declared. My magic will be useful for breaking their defenses. Then it's settled, Celestine said. Issei, Claudia, and Alicia will lead the assault on the northern fortress. Olga, you'll remain here to coordinate our defenses in case of counterattack. I'll work on contacting our scattered forces and preparing them to rally once we have the fortress. Everyone nodded in agreement, and the meeting broke up with people rushing off to make preparations. Issei found himself being led to a guest room by one of the palace servants. Lord Issei, you should rest before the mission, the servant said politely. I'll bring you food and water. Thanks, and you don't need to call me Lord, just Issei is fine, he replied, feeling awkward with the formal title. Once alone in the room, Issei sat on the bed and let out a long breath. Drake, this is crazy. We've only been here a few hours and I'm already planning to assault a fortress. This is what it means to carry the power of a heavenly dragon, partner. People will always look to us in times of crisis. But I must say, you're adapting well to this situation. I'm worried about getting back home though. Rias and the others must be freaking out. And what about Asia? She got pulled through too, but I haven't seen her anywhere. The magic that brought us here was chaotic. It's possible she was sent to a different location, or perhaps even a different time. We'll need to search for her once this immediate crisis is handled. Issei nodded, determination filling him. Finding Asia was definitely a priority, but he couldn't abandon these people either. He'd just have to work fast, help them win this war, find Asia, and figure out how to get home. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Celestine entered, carrying a tray with food and a pitcher of water. I thought I'd bring this myself. I wanted to thank you properly for everything you've done today. You don't need to thank me, Issei said, accepting the tray. I just did what anyone would do. No, Celestine shook her head, sitting down in a chair near the bed. What you did was extraordinary. You gave us hope when we had none. You showed us that this war isn't already lost. For that, I am deeply grateful. She looked at him with those deep blue eyes, and Issei felt his heart skip a beat. Celestine was really beautiful, and there was something about her presence that was calming and inspiring at the same time. Can I ask you something? Celestine continued. In your world, the one you came from, are you a hero there as well? Issei laughed. Hero? Not really. I'm just a guy trying to protect the people I care about. I've gotten into some crazy situations, but I'm nothing special. I find that hard to believe, Celestine smiled. The way you carry yourself, the way you fight, these aren't the actions of an ordinary person. You have a good heart, Issei Hayato. I can sense it. They talked for a while longer, with Issei telling her about some of his adventures back home, carefully editing out the more embarrassing parts. Celestine listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at the funnier stories. Eventually, she stood to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow's battle will be challenging, even for someone of your strength. Celestine, Issei called as she reached the door. She turned back to look at him. I promise I won't let anything happen to you or the others. We're going to win this. Her smile was radiant. I believe you. Good night, Issei. After she left, Issei finished his food and lay back on the bed, thinking about everything that had happened. This world, these people, it was all so different from home. But the core of what he was fighting for remained the same, protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Rest well, partner, Drake advised. Tomorrow, we show this world what the Red Dragon Emperor can really do. Issei closed his eyes, letting sleep take him. His last thought before drifting off was a mental image of all the women he met today, Celestine, Olga, Claudia, Alicia, and the others. They were all counting on him now. He wouldn't let them down. The next morning came quickly. Issei woke to find new clothes laid out for him, a mix of his style and local fashion. Someone had been thoughtful enough to provide something practical for battle. When he made his way to the courtyard, he found Claudia and Alicia already there with a group of about 50 knights, all women, all looking determined and ready for battle. Claudia wore impressive crimson armor that showed her status as a high-ranking knight. Her long pink hair was tied back in a practical style, and she carried a large sword that looked like it weighed a ton, but she wielded it effortlessly. Alicia's armor was lighter, designed for mobility, with magical enhancements visible in glowing runes across the surface. She carried a staff in one hand and had several magical implements on her belt. "Good morning, Issei," Claudia greeted him. "Are you ready?" "Always," Issei grinned. "What's the plan?" Alicia pulled out a small map. "The northern fortress is about a half-day's march from here. We'll approach from the western side, where their defenses are weakest. The main gate is too heavily fortified for a direct assault, even with your power. Once we're in position," Claudia continued, "Alicia will create a distraction with her magic. That's when you and I will lead the charge through their lines. Our goal is to reach the fortress commander and take him down quickly. Without leadership, their forces should scatter." "Sounds good," Issei nodded. "But I have a faster way to get there." "How do you feel about flying?" Both women blinked in surprise. "Flying?" Alicia asked. "Yeah. I can carry people while I fly. If it's just the three of us leading the initial assault, I can get us there in about an hour instead of half a day. Your knights can follow at normal pace and catch up once we've breached the defenses." Claudia and Alicia exchanged glances, then smiled. "I've always wanted to fly," Alicia said excitedly. "It's certainly more practical than marching," Claudia agreed. "Very well, let's do it your way." After giving instructions to the knight commander to follow at best speed, Issei prepared to take off. He picked up Alicia in a princess carry, which made her blush bright red, while Claudia insisted she could hold on to his back herself. "Everyone ready?" Issei asked. "This is so exciting," Alicia squealed. "Just don't drop us," Claudia said dryly, though he could hear a hint of excitement in her voice too. "Boost! Boost! Boost!" With a surge of power, Issei launched into the air. Both women gasped as they shot upward, then forward, soaring over the landscape at incredible speed. The palace shrank behind them as they flew north. The journey gave Issei a better view of this world. The landscape was beautiful, with forests, rivers, and mountains that reminded him of fantasy games he'd played. But he could also see the signs of war, burned villages, abandoned farms, and in the distance, the dark smoke rising from conflict zones. "There," Claudia pointed ahead. "That's the northern fortress." Issei could see it now, a large stone fortress built into the side of a mountain. Dark banners flew from its walls, and he could see enemy soldiers patrolling. Even from this distance, he could sense the wrongness of the place, an oppressive atmosphere that made his skin crawl. "Drake, you feel that?" Issei thought. "Yes, partner. Dark magic saturates that place. The commander there is using some kind of corruption spell. Be careful." They landed in a forest clearing about a mile from the fortress, out of sight of the patrols. Claudia immediately started planning their approach, but Issei was focused on something else. "Do you hear that?" he asked quietly. The others fell silent, listening. Faintly, carried on the wind, were sounds of crying and screaming from within the fortress. "The prisoners," Alicia whispered, her face going pale. "They're torturing them." Issei felt rage building in his chest again, but this time it was colder, more focused. These people were hurting innocents, and he was going to stop them. "Change of plans," he said quietly. "I'm going in now. Alone." "What? That's suicide," Claudia protested. "No," Issei said, his voice hard. "It's justice. You two wait here for your knights to arrive. Once I've taken out the commander and opened the gates, Bring everyone in to secure the fortress and rescue the prisoners. Issei, we should stick together, Alicia argued. But Issei was already walking toward the fortress, his sacred gear activating. Trust me. This won't take long. As he approached the fortress walls, guards noticed him and raised the alarm. Arrows and magic spells rained down, but Issei didn't even slow down. He activated his balance breaker, the red armor forming around him, and the attacks bounced off harmlessly. Boost! 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 Power built to incredible levels. Issei pulled back his fist, channeling all that energy into one point. Dragon shot! The blast hit the main gate with the force of a meteor. The massive wooden doors, reinforced with steel and magic, exploded into splinters. The shockwave knocked guards off the walls and shattered windows throughout the fortress. Issei walked through the destroyed gate into chaos. Enemy soldiers rushed at him from all directions, but they might as well have been trying to fight a natural disaster. His movements were precise and devastating. Every punch sent soldiers flying, every kick created craters in the stone floor. He didn't use his full power, didn't want to destroy the fortress completely, but he held nothing back against the soldiers themselves. A group of demon creatures similar to the ones from before charged down a staircase at him. Issei met them head-on, grabbing the first one by the horns and using it as a battering ram to smash through the others. Where's your commander? Issei roared, his voice amplified by his armor. One trembling soldier pointed toward the central keep. Issei didn't waste time with words, he just moved. The keep's doors were locked, so he punched through them. Inside, he found a large throne room, and sitting on the throne was presumably Commander Kin. Kin was a large demon with dark red skin, horns, and a cruel smile. Around him were several female knights and nobles in chains, looking terrified and abused. The sight made Issei's blood boil. Well, Kin laughed, standing up. The famous Red Dragon Emperor. Volt warned us about you. But you're too late. This fortress is mine, and these lovely ladies are my personal toys now. Not for long, Issei growled. Kin transformed, growing even larger, his demonic power radiating outward. I am one of Volt's 7 commanders. You think you can defeat me alone? I know I can. They clashed in the center of the room, Kin's demonic strength against Issei's draconic power. The demon was strong, stronger than the regular soldiers, but he was nothing compared to the beings Issei had fought back home. Boost! 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 Issei's power multiplied again, and suddenly he wasn't just matching Kin, he was dominating him. Each punch drove the demon back, cracking his armor and drawing dark blood. Impossible! Kin roared. I am a demon lord. You cannot. Dragon shot. The point-blank blast hit Kin square in the chest, blasting him through the throne, through the back wall, and out of the fortress entirely. His body crashed down the mountainside, unconscious or dead. Issei didn't particularly care which. The prisoners stared at him in shock. Issei deactivated his armor and approached them gently, breaking their chains with careful applications of strength. You're safe now, he said softly. My allies are coming to help. Can you walk? One of the knights, a beautiful woman with long black hair and gold eyes, looked at him with tears streaming down her face. You saved us. We thought no one would come. We thought. It's okay, Issei said, helping her stand. It's over. You're going to be fine. By the time Claudia and Alicia arrived with the night forces, Issei had freed all the prisoners and secured the fortress. The enemy forces had either fled or surrendered when they saw their commander defeated. The rescue was everything Issei had hoped for and more. Freed soldiers and knights were reunited with their comrades, and the sight of a fortress reclaimed sent a message throughout the land. The resistance was fighting back. That evening, as celebrations echoed through the fortress, Celestine arrived with more reinforcements. She found Issei on the fortress walls, looking out at the sunset. You did it, she said softly, standing beside him. The first major victory of the war. Our scouts report that enemy forces across the region are pulling back, confused and frightened. It's just the beginning, Issei replied. But yeah, it feels good. Celestine took his hand, squeezing gently. Thank you, Issei. For giving us hope. for showing us that we can win this." Issei looked down at her hand in his, then up at her face. The gratitude and warmth in her expression, and something more he was starting to recognize, made his heart race. "I made a promise," he said. "I'm going to save everyone. And I keep my promises." As the sun set on their first victory, Issei knew this was just the start. There were still 6 more fortresses to reclaim, an evil army to defeat, and somewhere out there, Asia to find. But for the first time since arriving in this world, he felt certain about something. He was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do, and he wouldn't stop until every last person was safe. The week following the liberation of the northern fortress was a whirlwind of activity. Issei found himself in the middle of a growing resistance movement, and the changes were happening faster than he'd expected. Word of the Red Dragon Emperor's arrival spread like wildfire across the land. Stories of how he'd single-handedly destroyed an army and reclaimed a fortress in less than a day became legend. Some of the tales were exaggerated, claiming he was 10 feet tall and breathed actual fire, but Issei didn't bother correcting them. If the stories helped boost morale, he'd take it. The northern fortress had been transformed into the new headquarters for the resistance. Scouts and messengers arrived daily with reports of scattered allied forces rallying to join them. Knights, soldiers, mages, and volunteers from liberated villages all came seeking to join the fight. Issei stood in what was now the main strategy room, looking at an updated map of the region. Red markers showed reclaimed territory, black markers showed enemy-controlled areas, and blue markers indicated allied forces moving to join them. "The numbers are looking better," Claudia said, standing beside him. Over the past week, she'd become one of his closest advisors. "We've gone from barely 500 fighters to nearly 3,000. If this keeps up, we'll have a real army soon." 3,000 against how many? Issei asked. Volt's total forces are estimated at around 15,000, plus the demon creatures and his 7 commanders. But they're spread across 6 fortresses and various strategic positions. They can't concentrate all their power in one place without leaving their other holdings vulnerable. Alicia entered the room, followed by several other women Issei had come to know over the past week. There was Prim Fireyre, the Princess Knight of the Ken Kingdom, a fierce warrior with blue hair who'd arrived 3 days ago with 200 loyal knights. Maya, a talented mage with long purple hair who specialized in barrier magic. And Lulu, a petite but deadly assassin-type fighter with twin daggers. "The morning reports are in," Prim announced, setting down a stack of papers. "More good news. The village of Redstone has declared for us, and they're sending supplies and recruits. That makes 7 villages in the past 3 days. The people are starting to believe we can win," Maya added with a smile. "Your reputation is spreading, Issei. They're calling you the Dragon Savior." Issei rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I'm just doing what needs to be done. Everyone here is fighting just as hard. But you're the one who started it all," Lulu pointed out, her usually quiet voice carrying conviction. "Before you arrived, we were losing hope. Now look at us. We're actually planning offensive operations instead of just trying to survive." It was true. The mood had completely shifted. When Issei first arrived, everyone had seemed defeated, just going through the motions while waiting for the inevitable. Now the fortress buzzed with energy and purpose. Speaking of offensive operations, Claudia pulled out a specific map showing the eastern region. "I think we should discuss our next target. We can't stay on the defensive forever." Before they could start planning, a commotion outside drew their attention. Issei heard raised voices and the sound of many footsteps. He moved to the window and looked down into the fortress courtyard. A large group of people had just arrived, maybe 200 strong. Most were dark elf soldiers in black armor, but leading them was someone Issei recognized immediately. "That's Olga," he said, surprised. "What's she doing here?" She was supposed to be holding the capital. They rushed down to the courtyard to find out what was happening. Olga dismounted from her horse, looking exhausted but determined. Her armor was scratched and dented, showing signs of recent combat. Princess Olga, Celestine appeared, having been alerted to the arrival. "What happened? Is the capital under attack?" "The capital is fine," Olga replied, her voice tired but strong. "I left sufficient forces to defend it. I came here because I heard what you accomplished, Issei Hayadu." 1 week and you've already turned the tide of this war. I decided my forces would be better used here, fighting alongside you. She turned to face Issei directly, her red eyes meeting his. I was wrong to doubt you. I apologize. Your strength and courage have proven beyond question. If you'll have us, my dark elf legions pledge themselves to your command. Issei was taken aback. You don't need to apologize for being cautious. And I'm not some supreme commander, we're all working together here. Nevertheless, Olga stepped closer, and to everyone's surprise she knelt before him. I, Olga Discordia, Princess of the Dark Elves, pledge my sword and my life to your cause. I will follow you until this war is won and our lands are free. Her soldiers followed her example, all of them kneeling in unison. The sight was powerful, and Issei felt the weight of responsibility settling even heavier on his shoulders. Please stand up, he said, feeling embarrassed by the formal display. All of you. We're allies, not master and servants. If we're going to win this war, it'll be because we fight together as equals. Olga stood, a small smile on her usually serious face. You really are different from other men I've known. Very well, as equals then. But I still intend to fight by your side. The arrival of Olga's forces was celebrated throughout the fortress. That night, a feast was held to welcome the new arrivals and boost everyone's spirits. The main hall was packed with people eating, drinking, and sharing stories. Issei found himself at the center of attention, as usual. Various commanders and nobles wanted to meet him, thank him, or discuss strategy. He tried his best to be polite and accommodating, but it was exhausting. You look like you could use a break, a gentle voice said beside him. Issei turned to find Celestine, holding 2 cups of wine. She offered him one with a warm smile. Come, let's step outside for some fresh air. Grateful for the excuse to escape the crowded hall, Issei followed her out onto a balcony overlooking the mountains. The night air was cool and refreshing, and the stars above were incredibly bright, far more than he'd ever seen back home. It's beautiful, Issei said, looking up at the sky. Yes, Celestine agreed, though she was looking at him rather than the stars. Issei, I wanted to thank you again. Not just for the military victories, but for something more important. What's that? You've given us back our dignity, she said softly. Before you came, we felt helpless, like victims waiting for our doom. But you showed us that we could fight back, that we were strong enough to resist. That's a gift beyond any military victory. Issei turned to look at her, and was struck by how beautiful she looked in the moonlight. Her blonde hair seemed to glow, and her blue eyes held a depth of emotion that made his heart skip. Celestine, he started, but she placed a finger on his lips. Let me finish, she said with a gentle smile. I know you're trying to find a way back to your world. Drake told me during one of our conversations about magic, and I understand that you have people waiting for you there. But I want you to know that for however long you're here, you have a home with us. With me. There was something in the way she said that last part, an implication that made Issei's face heat up. Celestine, I'm not asking for promises or commitments, she continued. I just wanted you to know how I feel. You've awakened something in me, Issei Hayato. Hope, yes, but also, something more personal. Before Issei could figure out how to respond, the balcony door burst open and Alicia rushed out, looking excited and worried at the same time. Issei. Celestine. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. We just got a report from our scouts. They hurried back inside to the strategy room, where several other commanders had already gathered. A scout, still dusty from travel, stood before the map. Report, Claudia ordered. Ma'am, we've located a large group of prisoners being transported from the eastern fortress to Volt's main stronghold. Approximately 500 women, including nobles, knights, and civilians. They're being moved through the Shadow Pass under heavy guard. When? Olga demanded. They'll reach the pass tomorrow at midday. After that, they'll be in Volt's central fortress, and rescuing them will become nearly impossible. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. 500 prisoners, that was more than they'd rescued from the northern fortress. But the Shadow Pass was deep in enemy territory, and any rescue operation would be dangerous. We have to save them, Prim said firmly. We can't let those women reach Volt's stronghold. But the risk. Maya started. I'll go, Issei said simply. All eyes turned to him. I can move fast, hit them hard, and get the prisoners out before enemy reinforcements arrive. Not alone, Olga said immediately. I'm coming with you. My forces are fast and experienced in rapid strikes. I'm going too, Alicia volunteered. You'll need magical support for teleportation and barriers to protect the prisoners during the escape. And my knights, Prim added. We specialize in rescue operations. Claudia studied the map carefully. If we commit too many forces, we'll leave this fortress vulnerable. But if we send too few, the mission could fail. She looked up at Issei. How confident are you? Issei thought about it. The powers he displayed so far were just a fraction of what he could do. Between his balance breaker, Drake's full power, and the boost he seemed to get from this world's different rules, he was confident he could handle whatever they threw at him. Very confident, he said. Give me a small, mobile strike force. We'll be in and out before they know what hit them. Then it's decided, Celestine said. Issei will lead a rescue mission to the Shadow Pass. Olga, Alicia, and Prim will accompany him with select forces. The rest of us will maintain our positions and be ready to receive the rescued prisoners. Plans were made quickly. They'd leave before dawn to reach the Shadow Pass by midday. The strike force would consist of Issei, 50 of Olga's fastest Dark Elf cavalry, 20 of Prim's elite knights, and Alicia with 5 support mages. As the meeting broke up and people went to prepare, Issei found himself alone with Drake in his quarters. Partner, I've been analyzing this world's energy patterns, Drake said thoughtfully. I think I'm starting to understand why your powers are stronger here. Yeah? What did you figure out? This world has what I'd call looser metaphysical laws. In your home dimension, reality itself pushes back against excessive power. It's why gods and dragons had to limit themselves, but here, the fabric of reality is more accommodating. It's almost like this world was designed for beings of great power to exist, so I can go even harder than I thought, within reason. Don't get cocky. But yes, I believe you haven't even scratched the surface of what you can do here. That balance breaker form you used? In this world, you could probably maintain it for hours instead of minutes. Issei grinned. Good to know. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. There was a knock on his door. Come in, he called. To his surprise, it wasn't one person but several. Celestine, Olga, Alicia, Prim, Maya, Lulu, and Claudia all entered his room together. They looked serious but also nervous about something. Is everything okay? Issei asked, confused by this sudden group visit. Celestine spoke first. We wanted to talk to you before tomorrow's mission. All of us. We've been discussing something, Olga continued. About you, about us, and about what happens after this war. Issei had a feeling he knew where this was going, and his heart started racing. Alicia took a step forward. Issei, we all know you're trying to get back to your world. And we never tried to stop you from going home to the people you care about. But we wanted you to know that we've all fallen for you, Prim finished bluntly, her cheeks red but her eyes determined. Every one of us. We know it's crazy, we know you've only been here a week, but it's true, Maya nodded. You saved us, protected us, gave us hope. But more than that, you treated us with kindness and respect. You saw us as people, not just damsels to rescue or prizes to win. In this world, Lulu added quietly, most men see women as either objects or obstacles. But you're different. You fight beside us, trust us, value our opinions. That's rare. Special. Claudia, usually so composed, looked almost shy. We talked about this among ourselves. We know that in your world, you might have someone waiting. But we wanted to be honest about our feelings. Even if you leave, even if nothing comes of this, we wanted you to know. Issei was speechless. 7 incredible women, all strong, beautiful, and amazing in their own ways, were confessing their feelings to him. It was like every fantasy he'd ever had, but the reality was far more overwhelming than he'd imagined. He started then stopped. What could he say? He did have people back home, Rias and the others. But he couldn't deny that he'd felt something growing between him and these women. The way Celestine made him feel calm and inspired. How Olga's fierce determination reminded him of his own drive to protect. Alicia's cheerful energy, Prim's noble warrior spirit, Maya's gentle wisdom, Lulu's quiet strength, Claudia's strategic mind and hidden warmth. I won't lie to you, he finally said. I do care about all of you. This past week has been incredible, and you've all become important to me. But I also have people back home that I care about. I don't know what the right answer is here. We're not asking for an answer right now, Celestine said gently. We just wanted to be honest. Whatever you decide, whatever happens, we'll respect it. But we also want you to know that if you wanted to stay, if you wanted to be with us, we'd all be happy with that. All of us? Issei asked, surprised. You mean? Olga actually blushed. We've discussed it. In this world, it's not uncommon for powerful men to have multiple wives, especially nobles and heroes. If you wanted all of us, we'd accept that. Issei's brain nearly short-circuited. 7 wives? It was every perverted dream he'd ever had come true, but looking at their faces, at the genuine emotion and vulnerability they were showing, he realized this wasn't about perverted fantasies. These were real feelings, real people opening their hearts to him. I need time to think about this, he said honestly. It's a lot to process. But I want you all to know that I care about each of you. You're not just allies or people I'm helping. You're important to me. They seemed satisfied with that answer. One by one, they approached him. Celestine kissed his cheek softly. Olga squeezed his hand with surprising gentleness. Alicia hugged him tightly. Prim gave him a warrior's salute that somehow felt intimate. Maya touched his forehead in what seemed like a blessing. Lulu simply smiled, her usually stoic face showing real warmth. And Claudia, last of all, looked into his eyes and whispered, "Come back safely tomorrow." After they left, Issei sat on his bed, his mind spinning. Drake, did that really just happen? It did, partner. And might I say you handled it well? You were honest without hurting anyone's feelings, and you gave yourself time to think. That's mature of you. I don't feel mature. I feel like my brain is melting. Welcome to the complicated world of relationships, partner. At least you have good problems now instead of the usual world-ending crises. Issei laughed despite himself. Yeah, I guess so. But seriously, what do I do? I mean, back home there's Rias and the others. But here, these women need me too. And I do feel something for them. Only you can answer that, partner. But remember, you don't have to decide everything tonight. First, let's focus on tomorrow's mission. Save those prisoners. Keep building this resistance. The rest will work itself out in time. That made sense. Issei lay back on the bed, trying to clear his mind and get some rest before the mission. But as he drifted off to sleep, his last thoughts were of both his old life and this new one, of Rias's crimson hair and Celestine's blonde locks, of his friends in Co and his new allies here. Somewhere between the two worlds, his heart was being pulled in multiple directions. And he had no idea which way he'd ultimately go. But that was a problem for later. Tomorrow, he had 500 people to save, and that was something he knew how to do. Dawn came early. Issei stood in the fortress courtyard as the strike force assembled. Olga's dark elf cavalry were mounted on sleek black horses that seemed built for speed. Prim's knights wore lighter armor for mobility. Alicia and her mages were preparing teleportation circles and protective charms. Everyone ready? Issei called out. A chorus of affirmative responses came back. These warriors were professionals, experienced and disciplined. They'd do their part, he just had to do his. Celestine approached to see them off. Be safe, she told him privately. All of you. We will, Issei promised. Just keep things running here. When we get back with those prisoners, we're going to need medical care and supplies ready. Already arranged, she smiled. Now go. And Issei? Thank you? For everything. He wanted to say something meaningful, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he just nodded and turned to join the others. The strike force moved out, heading east toward the Shadow Pass. Issei flew overhead, scouting ahead while the ground forces followed at their best speed. From above, he could see the lay of the land, the forests and hills that would provide cover, the open areas where they'd be vulnerable. Drake, how far can you sense? In this world? Quite far. I can feel demonic presences about 10 miles ahead. That's probably your target convo. Perfect. Let's see what we're dealing with. Issei flew ahead, staying high enough to avoid detection. Soon he spotted them, a long line of prisoners in chains, surrounded by at least 300 enemy soldiers and a dozen of those demon creatures. The prisoners looked exhausted and terrified, stumbling along the rough path. His rage flared again, but he kept it controlled. Anger was useful in battle, but only if directed properly. He flew back to report to the others. Found them. 300 guards, 12 demons. The prisoners are in the center of the formation, which means we need to break through and establish a perimeter before we can start evacuating them. Standard rescue pattern then, Prim said. Shock assault, establish control, evacuate under protection. Alicia, how long will you need to set up the teleportation? Olga asked. 5 minutes once we're in position, the young mage replied. But I'll need you to hold off any counterattacks during that time. We can do that, Issei said confidently. Here's the plan. I'll hit them first, draw their attention and scatter their formation. Olga, your cavalry follows up and establishes the perimeter. Prim, your knights protect Alicia and the prisoners while she sets up the teleport. Once everyone's through, we collapse the perimeter and I'll cover the retreat. They all nodded. It was a simple plan, which meant fewer things could go wrong. As they approached the Shadow Pass, Issei could feel his blood pumping with anticipation. This was what he did best. Saving people, fighting bad guys, and making sure the innocent went home safe. Boost! 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 Power built in his sacred gear, multiplying to incredible levels. The others watched in awe as red and green energy swirled around him. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. The crimson armor erupted across his body, more intense than ever before. He could feel Drake's full power flowing through him, unrestricted by the looser laws of this reality. Let's do this. Issei shot forward like a meteor, heading straight for the enemy convo. The battle for Shadow Pass was about to begin. Issei hit the enemy convo like a bomb going off. His entrance created a massive crater in the middle of their formation, sending soldiers flying in every direction. The shockwave alone knocked dozens of enemies off their feet, and the prisoners in the center screamed in fear before realizing someone had come to save them. Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Dragon shot! Blasts of draconic energy carved through the enemy ranks. Issei didn't hold back this time. These weren't confused soldiers following orders. These were the ones actively transporting innocent women to a fate worse than death. They deserved everything he was about to give them. The demon creatures roared and charged at him from multiple directions. Good. The more attention on him, the easier it would be for the others to do their jobs. The first demon swung a massive clawed hand at Issei's head. He caught it with one armored fist twisted, and used the creature's own momentum to flip it over his shoulder, and slam it into two more demons coming from behind. The impact cratered the ground and left all three stunned. Boost! 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 Another demon breathed fire at him. Issei charged straight through the flames, the heat washing harmlessly over his armor, and delivered an uppercut that sent the creature flying into the air. Before it could fall back down, he jumped up and kicked it like a soccer ball, sending it crashing into a group of enemy soldiers trying to regroup. Enemy reinforcements incoming from the east. Drake warned in his mind. How many? About 200 more. They must have been nearby when the fighting started. Issei grinned inside his helmet. Perfect. More targets. Through the chaos, he saw Olga's cavalry charge into the battlefield. The Dark Elf riders moved with incredible precision, their black horses weaving between enemies as their riders cut down anyone who got close to the prisoners. Olga herself was a force of nature, her sword leaving trails of dark magic as it cleaved through enemy armor. Prim and her knights formed a protective circle around Alicia and the prisoners. The Night Princess fought with skill and grace, her blade dancing as she parried attacks and countered with lethal efficiency. Her knights matched her energy, creating an impenetrable wall of steel around the civilians. 5 minutes! Alicia called out, her hands glowing as she began drawing massive teleportation circles on the ground. I need 5 minutes. You've got it! Issei shouted back. He spotted the reinforcements Drake had mentioned cresting a nearby hill. Time to make sure they didn't reach his friends. Welsh Dragon over Booster. His armor transformed, becoming sleeker and more aerodynamic. This was one of his favorite forms, designed for maximum speed and aerial combat. Wings of pure energy erupted from his back, and Issei launched himself at the incoming reinforcements. He covered the distance in seconds, slamming into the front line with devastating force. The soldiers barely had time to raise their weapons before Issei was among them, moving so fast he appeared as a red blur. Punch. Kick. Energy blast. Sweep the leg. Uppercut. Dragon shot. Issei's movements flowed like water, each action perfectly timed to cause maximum damage while conserving energy. He'd been training with Rias and the others for months, sparring against experienced fighters. These soldiers, while numerous, couldn't match that level of skill. A commander-type enemy, larger and better armored than the rest, stepped forward with a massive warhammer. You think you can fight an entire army alone, fool? Not thinking it, Issei replied, dodging the hammer strike and countering with a palm strike to the commander's chest that sent him flying backward. Doing it, the commander crashed through his own ranks, taking down a dozen soldiers like bowling pins. The others hesitated, fear replacing their earlier confidence. Who's next? Issei called out, his voice amplified by the armor. No one stepped forward. The enemy reinforcements were having second thoughts about this fight. Dragon shot. Issei fired a blast into the air above them, the explosion lighting up the sky like fireworks. The message was clear, run or die. They ran. Issei turned back toward the main battle to find it was basically over. The original convoy guards were either defeated, fleeing, or surrendering to Olga's cavalry. The demon creatures were all down, either unconscious or dead. And Alicia's teleportation circle was nearly complete, glowing with bright magical energy. Prisoners first. Prim was organizing the evacuation. Injured take priority. Stay calm and move quickly. The rescued women were being guided into the teleportation circle in groups. Issei flew back down to help, using his armored hands to gently break chains and help people to their feet. One woman, probably in her mid-20s with auburn hair and tear-stained cheeks, grabbed his hand as he freed her. Thank you, she sobbed. Thank you so much. They were going to, we thought. You're safe now, Issei said gently, his voice softer despite the fearsome appearance of his armor. Go with the others. There's food and medical care waiting for you. As the prisoners evacuated, Issei did a quick count. 500 women, just like the report said. Nobles, knights, commoners, mages, all kinds. Some were barely adults, others were older. All of them had been destined for horror, and now they were going to be free. Last group ready. Alicia called out. She looked exhausted from maintaining such a large teleportation spell, but her eyes shone with pride. Olga, Prim, get your forces through. Issei, you're last. Go! Issei ordered. I'll make sure no one follows. Olga looked like she wanted to argue, but Prim grabbed her arm. He can fly, we can't. Let's move. The strike force evacuated in an orderly fashion, disappearing through the glowing circle. Finally, only Issei and Alicia remained. Go! Issei told her. Not without you. She protested. I'm right behind you, I promise. But you need to go now so you can close the portal from the other side. Otherwise, enemies could follow through. Alicia hesitated, then nodded. Don't make me regret this. She jumped through the portal. The instant she was gone, Issei heard a roar of rage from the west. He turned to see a massive figure approaching, easily twice the size of the demons he'd been fighting. This one radiated serious power, dark energy rolling off it in waves. Dragon Emperor! The massive demon bellowed. I am Kin's brother, gone. You killed my sibling and now you dare attack our forces again? I'll tear you apart. Draeg, power level? Significant. This one is much stronger than anything we've faced in this world so far. He's one of Volt's 7 commanders, just like Kin was. Issei cracked his knuckles, the sound amplified by his gauntlets. Good. I was hoping for a real challenge. Gon charged forward with surprising speed for his size. His fist, wreathed in dark flames, slammed toward Issei's head. Issei blocked with his armored forearm, and the impact created a shockwave that flattened trees in a 100-foot radius. Not bad, Issei admitted. You're definitely stronger than your brother. I'll make you pay for his death. Gon roared, following up with a flurry of strikes. Issei dodged and weaved, analyzing the demon's fighting style. Powerful but predictable. He relied on raw strength rather than technique. That was a mistake. Boost! 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 Issei's power multiplied, and suddenly he wasn't just defending anymore. He caught Gon's next punch, twisted the demon's arm, and delivered a devastating knee strike to the ribs. The sound of cracking bone echoed across the battlefield. Gon stumbled back, shock on his face. Impossible! You're just a human! Nope, Issei grinned behind his helmet. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor. And you picked a fight with the wrong guy. The battle intensified. Gon unleashed dark magic, firing blasts of corrupted energy that would have killed a normal person instantly. Issei either dodged or absorbed them with his armor, countering with dragon shots that tore chunks out of the landscape. They clashed again and again, fist against fist, power against power. The ground beneath them cracked and split from the force of their impacts. Any remaining enemy soldiers in the area fled, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. You're strong, Issei admitted, breathing heavily inside his armor. Stronger than I expected. But you're still going to lose. We'll see about that. Gon's body erupted with dark flames, his demonic power reaching its peak. I'll show you my true form. The demon grew even larger, his body transforming into a massive beast with multiple arms and horns. His power level spiked dramatically. Partner, be careful, Drake warned. He's burning his life force to power this transformation. He's desperate. Then I'll end this quickly, Issei replied. He closed his eyes, focusing inward. In this world, with its looser laws of reality, he could push further than ever before. He could feel it, a deeper well of power waiting to be tapped. Drake, remember when we talked about Juggernaut Drive? Partner, that's too dangerous. Even here the risks, not full Juggernaut Drive. Just a taste of it. Controlled. Can we do that? There was a pause. Then Drake's voice came back, thoughtful and intrigued. In this world, perhaps. The usual restrictions don't apply here. But you'll need to maintain absolute control. Trust me. Always, partner. Issei's armor began to change. Red energy mixed with darker, more primal power. His helmet grew a second set of horns, and his wings became larger, more draconic. This wasn't the full Juggernaut Drive that would cost him his sanity, but it was a controlled version, drawing on that legendary power without losing himself to it. Partial Juggernaut Drive. The power that exploded from Issei made Gon's transformation look like a candle next to the sun. The very air seemed to warp around him, and the ground beneath his feet cracked in a spiderweb pattern that stretched for hundreds of yards. What is this power? Gon stammered, fear replacing his earlier confidence. This is what happens when you threaten innocent people, Issei said, his voice layered with draconic resonance. This is justice. He moved. Gon couldn't even track the movement. One moment Issei was standing there, the next he was behind the demon, his fist buried in Gon's back. The impact sent the massive demon flying forward, crashing through a hillside and leaving a trench in the ground. Gon tried to rise, but Issei was already there, delivering a combination of strikes that would have killed a lesser being instantly. Each punch drove the demon deeper into the ground, each kick sent him tumbling like a ragdoll. This is for every innocent person you've hurt, Issei said coldly. For every life you've destroyed. For every tear you've caused. And mercy, Gon gasped, his transformation breaking down, his body shrinking back to normal size. Please, Issei stopped, breathing heavily. Part of him wanted to finish this, to make sure this demon could never hurt anyone again. But another part, the part that made him a hero instead of just another fighter, hesitated. Drake, what do you think? He's defeated, partner. The choice is yours. But remember, mercy shown to an enemy can sometimes prevent future conflicts. Or it can come back to bite you. Issei thought about the prisoners they'd just saved. About Celestine and the others waiting back at the fortress. About the kind of person he wanted to be. I'll spare your life, Issei said finally. But you're going to deliver a message for me. Tell Volt and his other commanders that the Red Dragon Emperor is coming for them. Tell them that every fortress they hold, every prisoner they've taken, every crime they've committed, I'm going to make them answer for it all. And tell them that unlike you, I won't hesitate to end anyone who stands in my way of protecting innocent people. Gon nodded frantically, terrified and broken. Issei released him, and the demon fled without looking back. Issei deactivated his partial juggernaut drive, the armor returning to its normal balance breaker form. He felt tired but satisfied. The mission was a complete success. 500 prisoners rescued, enemy forces scattered, and he'd even sent a message to Volt. Partner, that was impressive, Drake said with approval. You maintained control of that power perfectly. In this world, you might actually be able to use that form regularly. Good to know. But for now, let's get home. The others are probably worried. Issei flew back toward the northern fortress, the sun setting behind him. As he flew, he thought about everything that had happened. This morning, 7 women had confessed their feelings to him. This afternoon, he'd saved 500 lives. This world was changing him, he could feel it. Back home, he'd always been the perverted guy trying to prove himself. Here, he was a hero, a leader, someone people looked up to and trusted. It felt good, really good. But it also made his eventual decision harder. Could he really leave this world behind? Leave these people who needed him? Leave the women who loved him? Those were questions for another day. Right now, he had a victory to celebrate and rescued prisoners to check on. The fortress came into view, and Issei could see people gathering in the courtyard. They must have received word about the successful rescue. As he descended, he saw Celestine, Olga, Alicia, and the others waiting for him. He landed and deactivated his armor, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the day's battles. Before he could say anything, the women rushed forward, and he found himself surrounded by relieved, happy faces. You did it! Alicia threw her arms around him. All 500 rescued, and you sent one of Volt's commanders running with his tail between his legs, Olga added with a rare smile. Word is already spreading. Celestine approached more slowly, her eyes shining with emotion. You kept your promise. You brought everyone home safely. That's what I do, Issei said with a tired grin. That night, another celebration filled the fortress. But this one was different from the last. The rescued prisoners, after receiving medical care and food, joined in. Their gratitude was overwhelming, and Issei found himself thanked by hundreds of people. One particular group caught his attention, a group of female knights who'd been among the prisoners. They approached him together, led by a tall woman with long silver hair and striking green eyes. Lord Issei, she said formally, kneeling before him. The others followed her lead. I am Maya, captain of the 3rd Knight Order. My sisters and I owe you our lives and our honor. We formally request permission to join your forces and fight under your command. You don't need to kneel, Issei said quickly, feeling awkward again. And you don't need my permission to fight for your own freedom. Nevertheless, Maya stood, her eyes firm with determination. You saved us from a fate we cannot speak of. Our old commanders either died or fled. We have nowhere else to go, and more importantly, we choose to follow you. Will you accept us? Issei looked at the group. There were at least 50 knights here, all experienced warriors. Having them would significantly boost their military strength. If you want to fight with us, I won't stop you, he said. But I'm not going to order you around like servants. We work together as allies, understood? Maya smiled, a beautiful expression that transformed her serious face. Understood, my lord. Though I suspect you'll find us quite eager to follow your orders regardless. The other women laughed, and Issei noticed some of them looking at him with expressions that went beyond mere gratitude. Oh boy, he thought. This is getting complicated. As the night went on, Issei found a quiet moment on the fortress walls. He looked out at the camp that had grown around the fortress, at the fires of hundreds of soldiers and refugees who'd come seeking protection and hope. Quite a sight, isn't it? Prim joined him, leaning against the wall. 2 weeks ago, we were losing this war. Now look at us. We have an army, we have hope, and we're actually winning battles. It's not over yet, Issei reminded her. Volt still holds 5 fortresses, and he's got thousands of soldiers. True. But we have you. Prim turned to face him fully. Issei, I meant what I said last night. About my feelings. I know you need time to think, but I want you to know that I'm serious. When this war is over, I want to be with you. Properly. Issei felt his face heat up. Prim, you don't need to answer now, she said with a soft smile. But I wanted to remind you that the offer stands. For all of us. She stepped closer, and before Issei could react, she kissed him gently on the lips. It was brief, barely a few seconds, but it sent electricity through his entire body. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed but her eyes were confident. Think about it, she whispered, then walked away, leaving Issei stunned on the wall. Partner, Drake's amused voice echoed in his mind. Your life has become quite complicated. Tell me about it, Issei muttered, touching his lips where Prim had kissed him. The next few days were a blur of activity. The rescued prisoners integrated into the fortress community. Those who could fight joined the training programs. Those who couldn't helped with cooking, medical care, and other support roles. The fortress population swelled to over 4,000 people. Military training intensified. Issei found himself not just as a fighter but as a teacher, showing soldiers how to work together, how to coordinate attacks, and most importantly, how to believe in themselves. He also spent time with each of the 7 women who'd confessed to him, getting to know them better. Celestine was wise and kind, with a deep understanding of magic and politics. She taught him about the history of this world, and they spent evenings discussing philosophy and dreams for the future. Olga was fierce and proud, but underneath was a woman who cared deeply about her people. She trained with him, and he learned that her cold exterior hid a passionate heart. Alicia was energetic and fun, always finding ways to make people smile even in dark times. Her optimism was infectious, and being around her made Issei feel younger, more carefree. Prim was noble and honorable, a true knight in every sense. She challenged him to be better, to think strategically, and her dedication inspired him. Maya was gentle but strong, a healer who could also fight when needed. She showed him the value of patience and compassion. Lulu was quiet and mysterious, but incredibly perceptive. She noticed things others missed and gave advice that was always surprisingly insightful. Claudia was sharp and tactical, but also had a playful side she rarely showed. She kept him grounded when his plans got too ambitious. Each of them was special in their own way, and Issei found himself caring about all of them more and more. The idea of choosing just one seemed impossible. But the idea of accepting all 7 still felt surreal. Partner, you need to make a decision eventually, Drake advised one night. Not about staying or leaving, that can wait. But about these women. They deserve to know where they stand. I know, Issei sighed. It's just, back home, I'm still figuring things out with Rias and the others. And here, it's 7 incredible women who want to be with me. How do I even begin to handle this? By being honest. With them and with yourself. What do you want, Issei? That was the question, wasn't it? What did he want? The answer came to him gradually over the following days. He wanted to protect everyone. He wanted to end this war. He wanted to find Asia. And he wanted to be with these women who'd shown him a different kind of acceptance and love. But could he really have all of that? On the 10th day since the Shadow Pass rescue, scouts brought urgent news. Volt was making his move. He was consolidating his forces, pulling soldiers from outlying areas into his remaining strongholds. It was clear he was preparing for a major confrontation. The war was entering its next phase, and Issei knew that the easy victories were over. The real battles were about to begin. But as he looked around the strategy room at Celestine, Olga, Alicia, Prim, Maya, Lulu, and Claudia, all of them looking at him with trust and confidence, he felt ready. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. And maybe, just maybe, he'd figure out this whole relationship situation too. But first, they had a war to win. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds of the northern fortress. Issei stood in the center of a large circle, surrounded by about 200 soldiers waiting for instruction. Over the past 2 weeks, these training sessions had become a regular part of the fortress routine. All right everyone, pair up, Issei called out. Today we're focusing on defensive formations. The key isn't just individual strength, it's working together as a unit. He watched as the soldiers partnered up and began practicing the drills he'd taught them. Most were women, former prisoners or refugees who decided to fight rather than wait to be rescued again. Their determination impressed him daily. Lord Issei, one of the younger recruits, approached nervously. She couldn't have been more than 19, with short brown hair and a scar on her cheek from some previous battle. Could you demonstrate that blocking technique again? I'm still not getting it right. Sure thing. And please, just call me Issei. He moved to show her the proper stance. The trick is to redirect the force, not absorb it directly. Like this, he demonstrated slowly, showing how to angle your body so an incoming strike glanced off rather than hitting full force. The recruit tried it, and after a few attempts, started to get the hang of it. I got it. Thank you so much. Her face lit up with a bright smile. Good work. Keep practicing. Issei moved on to help others, offering corrections and encouragement. From the side of the training ground, Claudia watched with her arms crossed, a small smile on her face. When the session ended and the soldiers dispersed for lunch, she approached him. You're a natural teacher, she observed. These soldiers respect you not just for your power, but because you genuinely care about making them stronger. Issei wiped sweat from his forehead with a towel. They deserve to be able to protect themselves. I won't always be there to save everyone, so the best thing I can do is make sure they can save themselves. Humble and practical, Claudia's smile widened. 2 more reasons why everyone here adores you. She paused, then added more softly, myself included. Before Issei could respond, Alicia came running up, practically bouncing with excitement. Issei, you have to come see what we found. It's amazing. What is it? Just come on. She grabbed his hand and started pulling him toward the fortress library. Claudia chuckled. I'll catch up with you later. Don't let her wear you out completely. The library was a large room filled with ancient books and scrolls. At a central table, Celestine and Maya were examining an old tome that looked like it had seen better days. Both women looked up as Issei and Alicia entered. There you are, Celestine smiled warmly. We've made an interesting discovery about your sacred gear. Issei moved closer, curious. What did you find? Maya pointed to a passage in the book, written in an archaic language Issei couldn't read. This is a historical text about the legendary heavenly dragons. According to this, Drake and Albion once fought in this world thousands of years ago, during what was called the Great Dragon War. I remember that conflict, Drake's voice echoed in Issei's mind. It was before I was sealed in the sacred gear. This world was one of many battlegrounds. The interesting part, Celestine continued, is what happened after. The text says that when Drake left this world, he left behind traces of his power that seeped into the land itself. That's why this world's laws are more accommodating to draconic energy. So that's why my powers work better here, Issei realized. This world literally has dragon energy built into it. Exactly, Alicia grinned. Which means you're not just strong here by accident. This world was practically made for someone like you. There's more, Maya said, flipping to another page. According to legend, Drake also left behind something called the Dragon's Heart, a crystallized fragment of his power. If you could find it and absorb it, your strength would increase exponentially. Where is it? Issei asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be simple. That's the problem, Celestine sighed. The text doesn't say exactly. Just that it's hidden in the place where earth meets sky and fire meets water. A riddle, Issei groaned. Of course it's a riddle. We'll figure it out, Alicia said optimistically. But even without it, you're already incredibly strong. This is just a bonus possibility for later. They spent the next hour discussing the text and theorizing about locations that might fit the riddle. Eventually, Celestine had to leave for a council meeting, and Maya returned to the medical wing to check on patients. Issei found himself alone with Alicia in the library. She seemed to hesitate for a moment, then spoke up. Issei, can I ask you something personal? Sure, what's up? She fidgeted with the edge of her robe. Back in your world, the girl you care about, what's she like? Issei thought about Rias. She's amazing. Strong, beautiful, kind but also fierce when she needs to be. She saved me when I was at my lowest point, and gave me a reason to keep fighting. Alicia nodded slowly. She sounds wonderful. Do you think you'll go back to her? When we find a way to return you to your world? The question hung in the air. Issei had been avoiding thinking too hard about it, but he couldn't dodge it forever. I honestly don't know, he admitted. Part of me wants to go home, to see Rias and my friends again. But another part of me doesn't want to leave you and the others here. Really? Alicia's eyes lit up with hope. Really? You've all become so important to me, Alicia. This war, this fortress, these people, it all matters. You matter. She stepped closer, looking up at him with those expressive eyes. Issei, I know I'm probably the youngest of the 7 of us who confess to you. I know I'm not as wise as Celestine or as strong as Olga or as strategic as Claudia. But I want you to know that my feelings are real. When I'm with you, I feel safe and happy and like I can be myself completely. Alicia. Issei felt his heart ache. This cheerful, energetic girl who brought light to everyone around her was laying her heart bare. You don't have to say anything now, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know. And also. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. Thank you for everything you've done for us. Then she hurried out of the library, leaving Issei standing there with his hand on his cheek, feeling both touched and confused. Partner, you're collecting quite the harem, Drake observed with amusement. This isn't funny. I have no idea what I'm doing. On the contrary, you're doing quite well. You're being honest about your uncertainty, treating each woman with respect, and not making promises you can't keep. That's more than most men in your position would do. That afternoon, Issei had scheduled training with Olga. The Dark Elf Princess was waiting for him in a private training area, her sword already drawn. You're late, she said, but there was no real anger in her voice. Sorry, got caught up in the library. Well, you're here now. Shall we begin? Their training sessions had become a regular thing. Olga was one of the few people in the fortress who could actually keep up with Issei's speed when he wasn't using his balance breaker. Fighting her helped him sharpen his technique rather than just relying on raw power. They clashed sword against armored fist. Olga's blade danced through the air with deadly precision, and Issei had to stay focused to avoid getting hit. He could have used his sacred gear to overwhelm her easily, but that wasn't the point of these sessions. Better, Olga commented as Issei successfully parried a series of strikes. Your footwork has improved. I have a good teacher, Issei replied, countering with a sweet kick that she jumped over gracefully. They continued for another 20 minutes, pushing each other to improve. Finally, they called a break, both breathing heavily from the exertion. You know, Olga said as they sat down to rest, when you first arrived, I thought you were just another powerful fool who'd get himself killed trying to play hero. And now? She smiled, a rare soft expression on her usually stern face. Now I think you're a powerful fool who actually knows what he's doing. And more than that, you've earned my respect, Issei Hayate. That's not something I give easily. I'm honored. You should be, she said with mock arrogance, then her expression became serious. I want to show you something. Will you come with me? Curious, Issei followed her out of the fortress and into the surrounding forest. They walked for about 15 minutes until they reached a small clearing with a beautiful view of the mountains. This is my thinking spot, Olga explained. I come here when I need to clear my head. I've never shown it to anyone else. Why show me? She turned to face him, her red eyes intense. Because I want you to understand something. I'm not good with words like Celestine or playful like Alicia. I'm a warrior, and I express myself through actions. So when I say I have feelings for you, I'm showing you by sharing this place that means something to me. Issei felt a lump in his throat. Olga, I know the situation is complicated, she continued. I know you have someone in your world, and I know there are 6 other women here competing for your heart. But I don't care about any of that. What I care about is that you're the first man I've ever met who treats me as an equal. You don't see me as a prize to win or a subordinate to command. You see me as a person, as a warrior in my own right. That means everything to me. She stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. So whatever you decide about going home or staying, about choosing one of us or all of us or none of us, I want you to know that I will support you. Because that's what you do for people you care about. Then she did something that surprised him. She hugged him. It wasn't romantic or seductive, just a genuine embrace between 2 people who'd come to care about each other. Issei hugged her back, feeling the weight of responsibility settling even heavier on his shoulders. These women weren't just offering him their hearts, they were trusting him with something precious. He couldn't treat that lightly. That evening, Prim found him on the fortress walls again. She seemed to have a sixth sense for when he needed someone to talk to. You look troubled, she observed, leaning against the wall beside him. Just thinking about everything, Issei admitted. About the war, about you and the others, about what happens after all this is over. The war will be won, Prim said with confidence. With you leading us, I have no doubt. As for the rest, that's more complicated, isn't it? Yeah. Prim was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. Issei, I want to tell you about my life before you arrived. I was the Princess Knight of Ken, revered and respected, but also incredibly lonely. People saw my title and my skill with a sword, but no one saw me. The real me, with doubts and fears and dreams beyond just being a warrior. She turned to look at him. But you do. When you look at me, I don't feel like just another soldier or just another pretty face. I feel seen. And that's a gift I never expected to receive. Prim, I'm not telling you this to pressure you, she said quickly. I'm telling you because I want you to understand why my feelings are so strong. In just 2 weeks, you've given me something I've been searching for my whole life, genuine connection. She took his hand, intertwining their fingers. So take all the time you need to figure things out. I'm not going anywhere. The next day brought a different kind of challenge. Celestine asked Issei to accompany her to a diplomatic meeting with representatives from several liberated villages. They wanted to discuss formally joining the alliance and contributing resources to the war effort. I'd like you there as a show of strength, Celestine explained as they walked to the meeting hall. These village leaders need to see that we have the power to protect them if they commit to our cause. I'm not great at politics, Issei warned. You don't need to be. Just be yourself. Your presence alone speaks volumes. The meeting went better than Issei expected. The village representatives were clearly in awe of him, and Celestine skillfully leveraged that awe into concrete agreements for supplies, recruits, and intelligence sharing. Afterward, as they walked back through the fortress gardens, Celestine seemed pleased. That went well. We'll have another 1,000 recruits and enough food supplies to last 3 months. Well done. I didn't really do anything except stand there and look intimidating. Celestine laughed, the sound like wind chimes. Sometimes that's all that's needed. Leadership isn't